My folks were convinced I was a troublemaker. They lied about me being adopted and shipped me off to some backwater to find my real parents. My sister swiped every last dollar I had. Good riddance and stay gone, she spat. My other sister hung up when I begged for help. You get what you deserve if they beat you to a pulp. Don't bug me. My childhood sweetheart bribed the locals to make my life a living hell. Eventually, I became exactly what they wanted me to be. Then they regretted it. Rain was coming down in sheets. I waited from dawn till the afternoon, until my sister, Ashley, finally showed. Jake, why are you covered in filth? Are you doing this on purpose so we feel bad for you? She sat in her car, looking at me like I was something she scraped off her shoe. I started to get in. She floored it, covering me in mud. Gross. Take a cab. She threw a 20 at my feet. Her sports car sped away, leaving me soaked and covered in muck. I sighed, resigned to my fate, and started walking back into the storm. Hours later, I finally reached town. Of course, the buses stopped running. My wet clothes clung to me, freezing me to the bone. I stumbled into a convenience store and called the family mansion. Before I could even say hello, my other sister, Brittany, started yelling. Jake, what's with the Royal Treatment Act? You need to be chauffeured everywhere. Ashley chimed in. We gave you money for a cab. Are you trying to make me feel guilty? The phone was snatched away by my dad. His voice dripped with disappointment. 4 years, and you're still pulling this entitled crap? You have to make everyone miserable. I choked out. I'm sorry the buses aren't running. I'm sorry. There was a pause on the other end. My dad sighed. I'll send someone. The store owner, seeing how soaked I was, left me an umbrella when he closed up. It didn't do a damn bit of good against the downpour. I just huddled down, trying to make myself as small as possible. Morning came, and the sun broke through. Still no one came to get me. My head pounding, I boarded the bus, thankful for the money Ashley threw at me. Standing in front of the mansion, I nervously rubbed my hands on my jeans. My clothes were dry, but I felt naked under everyone's stares. My mom covered her mouth, her eyes red. Jake, what happened to you? My dad frowned, automatically scolding me. Did you deliberately wear rags to get our attention? Are you still blaming us for sending you to the sticks? They probably couldn't believe it. I used to love dressing cool and looking good. Now I was in patched up, faded clothes covered in mud. Down on the farm, I was working all day, every day. My old clothes wore out quick. If it wasn't for scavenging the throwaways, I would have been naked. I kept my head down, picking at my fingernails, mumbling an apology. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. These are the best clothes I have. Ashley cut me off. He's doing it on purpose. Everyone knows how vain you are. You would never wear that. I shut my mouth, letting her rant. He's playing the sympathy card so he doesn't have to go back to the farm. He's always been spoiled rotten. A voice piped up. Welcome home, Jake. Justin shrank behind Brittany when he saw me looking at him. Brittany glared at me. Why are you scaring Justin? Can't you leave him alone after 4 years? Ashley shoved me hard. You're such a pest. You always have to bully my brother. I already had a fever and no strength. I stumbled back a few steps. It was always like this. I did nothing, and they would always be there to chastise me for Justin. My mom tried to smooth things over. Justin said he forgives you. That's why we brought you home. My dad snorted. If you don't do anything to Justin, we can all accept you. Justin smiled weakly, looking all sweet and innocent. I would have tried to defend myself before, to say that he was acting, that I never hurt him. I didn't care anymore. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, I mumbled. They wouldn't believe me anyway. Besides, I would do anything to get away from my so-called parents. My mom gave me a complicated look, and then sadly changed the subject. Do you have to be so formal with your folks? I looked up, confused. But I'm not your kid, my parents are on the farm. They were speechless. After a moment my mom said, let's get you inside. I took off my shoes, showing my bleeding feet. My mom's eyes welled up again, and she hurried to get me some slippers. My dad looked away, telling the maid to get the first aid kit. I recoiled. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, but I'm too dirty, I'll do it. My mom burst into tears, burying herself in my dad's arms. I stood there, not knowing what I did wrong. Justin yelped, and everyone turned to him. He clutched his wrist, looking pained. Ashley glared at me. This is your fault. My brother's arm still hurts. Looking at Justin's frail expression, I felt complicated. He was adopted. As soon as he arrived, he was all sweetness and smiles. Everyone loved him. Even my high school sweetheart, Claire, was concerned about him. But around me, he was a different person. I tried to tell my family that he was fake, but they just thought I was jealous. 4 years ago, Justin was kidnapped. After he was rescued, he had nightmares. One night, he was outside my door, begging and crying. I won't take anything from you. Please leave me alone. He said he heard the kidnappers talking to me. I was a minor, and there was no proof, so I couldn't be charged. I tried to explain, but no one believed me, and Claire stayed away. Justin was diagnosed with depression and tried to commit suicide. I was blamed for everything. I thought I could clear my name if I just tried hard enough. Then I found out the truth. My folks told me I was adopted. At 16, I was sent to hell with my real parents. Those 4 years were nothing short of torture. Justin, surrounded by attention, smirked. Ashley, don't. I'm sure Jake's changed his ways, right? Brittany ruffled his hair. You're too nice, that's why he picks on you. My folks gave me another disappointed look. It was always like this. Anytime they gave me attention, he'd find a way to get them focused on him. I gave up trying to prove him wrong. The Thompsons would believe what they wanted to. And as far as I was concerned, I was guilty before even having a chance. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I'm only staying for the night. I'll look for a job tomorrow. Before I could finish, Brittany cut me off. Give it a rest, will you? You are home, so stop causing problems, okay? My mom looked hurt. Jake, why are you always being dramatic? Do you have to make us all uncomfortable before you're satisfied? I looked at them, confused. I'm not family. I shouldn't be staying here. My mom hesitated, but didn't say anything. My dad scowled. All right, stay here for now, we'll deal with it later. I didn't argue. They just wanted me to do what they said. I didn't understand why they wanted me to stay. No one here wanted me around. My old bedroom was Justin's art studio, and I had to stay in the maid's quarters. I was thrilled. I finally had a bed. For years, I slept in a barn or pig pen. I had to pay my so-called folks rent for the rare nights I got to sleep in a bed. Those nights were just as miserable as the others. Despite my pleas, they tied me to the bed and beat me. If I resisted, I'd get thrown in the cellar. I had no food or water until I was nearly dead. I tried to get help from the Thompsons, but my real folks caught me and tied me up. They burned me with a hot iron, laughing at me for being so stupid. The Thompsons said you're too spoiled, and we're supposed to teach you a lesson. You're going to stay here and earn us money. If you run away or call anyone again, I'll kill you. The clean sheets felt foreign to me, and I couldn't sleep. I got dressed and went outside, sitting with my back against the wall until I fell asleep. A hand shook me awake. I thought my folks were here with their friends again. I started taking off my clothes automatically. I would get hit if I was too slow. Ashley gasped. Jake, what are you doing? I woke up with a start. I was away from that hellhole. I was about to go back to my room, but Ashley stopped me, looking strange. I just got back from band practice. I stared at her. Then I remembered. She was into rock and always snuck out to practice with her band. The band members were older guys, and Ashley was a teenager. So I would wait up for her, nagging her to be careful. Then I'd make her tea to soothe her throat. She always rolled her eyes and threw it away. You're so annoying. Justin supports me, he's not like you. Even though that happened, I always waited for her. But all that got me was her ignoring my cries for help. With that in mind, I just said okay, and turned to leave. Ashley grabbed my arm, her face dark. Where's my tea? I blinked. Justin can make it for you. She scoffed, letting go of my arm. What's with you? It's your fault Justin got hurt. Going to that farm was your karma. If my brother hadn't forgiven you, you wouldn't be here. You shouldn't be mad at him. For years ago, those words would have crushed me. Now I felt nothing. You're right, I said. I turned and walked away, ignoring her yells. The next morning, Claire was at the Thompson house. After 4 years, I was surprised to find that I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel the need to cling to her like I did before. Claire frowned when I just nodded and walked past her. I wouldn't start playing hard to get, she sneered. I turned around, confused. Justin walked up and took Claire's arm. They stood close together, like a perfect couple. No wonder Claire always ignored me and told Brittany, Jake's so clingy. She liked Justin. Jake, Claire and I are going to study abroad. I heard you didn't finish school on the farm, why? Didn't your parents treat you well? Justin looked concerned and innocent. Over the years, he liked to show off how much everyone loved him to get under my skin. He didn't know how many times I was kicked out and left to die in the cold. I'm not going to react to his little jabs. I just want to live. No, they didn't have enough money. Ashley suddenly blurted. How could they not have money? Mom and Dad were sending money every month to Dash. Ashley. Justin leaned against Claire, looking weak. My arm is starting to hurt. Claire glared at me. Bad luck. My brother's arm always hurts when you're around. She helped Justin leave, shoving me out of the way. Jinx. Get out of the way. Claire pushed me aside. I smiled at the maid's pitying looks. I was used to not being loved. I tried to go out and look for work, but my folks told me to join them for breakfast. While talking about studying abroad, my mom asked, Jake, do you want to go with them? Justin's face fell. Mom, Jake didn't finish high school, it'll be hard for him. He shot me a look. I was supposed to go to the same high school as Claire. On the day of the entrance exam, Justin locked me in the storage room. I was hit in the head by a falling shelf, and I missed the exam. Now he wants to stop me from getting close to Claire. He's overthinking it. I wasn't planning on going. Before I could say anything, Claire spoke. You could go to high school over there. She stared at me looking eager. Justin's smile faded. I was confused. Wasn't she always annoyed when I hung around her? Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, but I'll pass. Claire's face turned dark. My mom looked at me, but didn't say anything. After searching for 2 days, I finally found a job that included room and board. When I told my parents I was leaving, my dad glared at me. What else do you want? You are going to threaten to leave to get attention again. I said quietly, I'm not a Thompson, I can't just stay here. Brittany handed me a card. If you really want to leave, Justin's eyesight is getting worse because of his kidnapping, and we need you to donate your cornea. So that's why they brought me back. The card Brittany held out was stiff, gold embossed, and bore the seal of A. High-end private surgical clinic downtown. Dr. Vance is expecting you at 2 o'clock tomorrow, Brittany said, her tone as dry and matter-of-fact as if she were handing me a grocery list. It's just a preliminary screening. They'll measure your endothelial cell count and check your ocular pressure. I stared at the gold foil lettering. Vance Ophthalmic Institute. My cornea. I repeated softly. My voice was barely a whisper, flat and hollow. In the silent foyer, Ashley crossed her arms, standing beside Brittany like a dutiful bodyguard. Don't act like we're asking for your heart, Jake. Humans have 2 eyes. You only need one to look at the ground, which is all you ever do anyway. Justin's an artist. He needs perfect vision to go to the academy in Paris. Besides, Brittany added, stepping closer, her perfume smelling overwhelmingly of artificial roses, this is your chance to make amends. You caused his trauma during the kidnapping. You made him cry until his optic nerves weakened. Giving him your cornea is just balancing the scales. I looked at my mother. She stood near the bottom of the staircase, wringing a silk handkerchief in her hands. Her eyes flickered away when I met her gaze, landing instead on the polished marble floor. Mom, I said quietly. It was the first time I had used that word since I stepped through the front door. She flinched. Jake. The doctor said it's a simple procedure. A local anesthetic, 45 minutes on the table. We'll hire the best private nurse to look after you while you recover. You'll be comfortable here. Comfortable, I murmured. My father picked up his morning paper, turning the page with a sharp, decisive snap. It's decided. We've already paid the non-refundable surgical deposit. You owe this family 4 years of disruption, Jake. Consider this your final utility bill. I looked down at my hands. The nails were cracked, stained with dark dirt that no soap could scrub out after 4 years of working the soybean fields. My right thumb was crooked. It had broken when my farm father slammed a barn door on my hand because I didn't haul the water buckets fast enough. It had set wrong in the dark. I looked at the gold card again. They didn't bring me back because they missed me. They didn't bring me back because Justin forgave me. They brought me back like a calf brought to the slaughterhouse, kept in the barn until it was time to bleed. Okay, I said. Brittany paused, her hand hovering in the air. What? I said okay. I repeated calmly. I took the card from her fingers. I'll go to the clinic tomorrow. Ashley frowned, clearly unsettled by how easily I agreed. She had prepared a speech, an argument, a shouting match. My total lack of resistance left her looking foolish and off balance. You're not going to throw a fit? Ashley asked, her eyes narrowing. You're not going to cry to Claire or yell at Dad? No, I said. Where is the consent form? My father set his newspaper down, his heavy brow furrowing. For a moment, a flicker of something resembling unease crossed his harsh face. He wasn't used to this version of me. He was used to the 16-year-old boy who screamed, who smashed plates, who wept on his knees screaming, I didn't do it. I swear didn't do it. This Jake just stood there, stooped and small, carrying the smell of rain and cheap tobacco, agreeing to give up a piece of his body as if he were handing over a spare coat. The legal team will have the paperwork ready tonight, Mr. Thompson said, his voice dropping an octave. You'll sign it before dinner. Under one condition, I said. Ashley sneered. I knew it. There it is. How much money do you want, you leech? I looked her straight in the eyes. I didn't blink. I don't want money. I want a legal severance agreement, drawn up by a notary, stating that once the surgery is complete, the Thompson family waives all parental rights, all legal connections, and all future contact with me, stating that I am officially legally dead to this family, and you are dead to me. The room went dead quiet. My mother stopped wringing her handkerchief. Jake, what are you talking about? Severance. You told me 4 years ago that I was adopted. I said, my voice dead and empty. You told me my real parents were the people on the farm in North Valley. If I am not your son, then I am a donor. A donor has a contract. I trade my eye for For my freedom. Signed, sealed, and filed with the city court. My father stood up slowly, his tall frame looming over the living room. You dare bargain with me in my own house? If you don't sign the severance, I said softly, looking at the gold card in my hand, I'll walk out that door right now. You can try to drag me to the operating table by force, but I don't think Dr. Vance's high-end clinic wants to perform an organ harvest on a screaming, thrashing patient while the local press stands outside. Ashley gasped. You little monster. Draw up the paper. I told my father. I'll sign both at the same time. I turned and walked back down the dark hallway toward the small, cramped maids' quarters near the laundry room, closing the door behind me. At 1:30 p.m. the following afternoon, a black town car picked me up from the mansion. My father didn't come. Ashley and Brittany stayed home to take Justin to his piano lesson. Only my mother sat in the back seat beside me, her designer leather handbag pressed tightly against her lap. She kept looking at me out of the corner of her eye. I was wearing a plain white t-shirt and gray sweatpants that the maid had pulled out of a donation box. They were 3 sizes too big, hanging loosely off my emaciated frame. Jake, she whispered as the car stopped at a red light. Are you sure about the severance paper? Your father was very angry last night. He signed it, didn't he? I asked, looking out the tinted window at the passing skyscrapers. He signed it because Justin needs the surgery, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But you don't have to be so cold. Once this is over, you can stay in the maid's room as long as you want. We can give you a small monthly allowance. I don't want your money, Mrs. Thompson, I said quietly. She flinched as if I had struck her. Why do you keep calling me that? I raised you for 16 years. And then you gave me to 2 strangers who tied me to a bed with thick rope and burned my back with an iron. I replied, my voice completely level. I didn't. Look at her. So Mrs. Thompson feels appropriate. Her breath hitched. They didn't. We paid them $5,000 a month to rehabilitate you. They sent us monthly reports. They sent you reports, I said. And they spent your money on grain liquor and gambling debts while they let their friends use me for target practice with wooden clubs. She opened her mouth, her face turning pale, but the car pulled up to the glass entrance of the Vance Ophthalmic Institute before she could speak. Inside, the clinic was silent, pristine, and smelled heavily of industrial disinfectant. Dr. Vance, a man in his 50s with silvering hair and gold-rimmed spectacles, met us in a private consultation room. Mrs. Thompson, a pleasure, Dr. Vance said smoothly, shaking her hand. Then he turned to me. And this must be the donor, Jake. Please step behind the screen and strip to your waist so we can conduct the routine pre-op physical. I walked behind the white curtain and unbuttoned my oversized shirt. A second later, I heard a sharp gasp from the nurse assisting him. Dr. Vance. The nurse whispered, her voice laced with horror. Look at this. Dr. Vance stepped behind the curtain. I stood there under the bright examination lights, my bare chest and back exposed. My skin was a roadmap of violent history. Across my shoulder blades were deep, thick white keloid scars from rope burns. On my ribs were 3 misaligned fractures that had healed into jagged, protruding lumps. On my lower back was a round, puckered scar the size of a silver dollar, the smooth, ruined skin left behind by a red-hot clothing iron. My arms were covered in small, dark puncture marks from untreated skin infections. Dr. Vance's professional composure shattered. He stared at my torso, his jaw slack. Good God. The doctor breathed. What happened to you? I fell. I said automatically. Fell. Dr. Vance's voice rose in pitch. Son, these are 3rd-degree burn scars and defensive trauma marks. This is severe, prolonged physical torture. How long have you lived with these injuries? For years, I replied flatly. Can we do the eye exam now? Dr. Vance looked at me, then pulled the curtain back with a sharp jerk, glaring at my mother, who was sitting in the armchair outside. Mrs. Thompson. Dr. Vance barked, his voice laced with righteous fury. What is the meaning of this? Who brutalized this boy? My mother stood up, her face turning a ghastly shade of gray as she caught a glimpse of my back through the open curtain. She had never seen me shirtless. Since I came back, I had always kept my long sleeves rolled down, even in the muggy summer heat. I didn't. She stumbled backward, clutching her throat. Jake. What is that on your back? It's the rehabilitation you paid for, I said softly, pulling my shirt back over my head. Dr. Vance took a deep breath, adjusting his glasses with trembling fingers. I cannot in good conscience perform an elective organ transplantation on a patient showing clear signs of active, uninvestigated physical abuse. I am required by medical ethics and state law to report these physical findings to Dr. Vance. My mother interrupted, her panic turning into a sudden, sharp edge. We paid your clinic a $500,000 endowment last month. The donor is consenting. The severance agreement has been signed by our family's attorneys. You will perform the screening, and you will schedule the surgery for Thursday. Dr. Vance stared at her, his eyes cold with disgust. He looked at the vast financial power of the Thompson family, then looked at me, a skinny ruined boy in hand-me-down clothes who didn't even flinch at the sight of his own scars. Money, as it always did in their world, swallowed the truth whole. Fine, Dr. Vance said, his voice dropping into a hollow whisper. Sit in the chair, Jake. Let's look at your eyes. The screening took 2 hours. When we stepped out of the clinic into the late afternoon sun, Claire was standing by the town car, wearing a beige trench coat, holding a pair of iced coffees. She had come with Ashley to pick us up. When she saw me walk out, she gave me a cold, pitying look. Satisfied now, Jake? Claire asked, walking up to me while my mother got into the front seat of the car. You forced your parents to sign a legal severance paper just to make them feel guilty. Isn't giving a cornea the bare minimum you can do after ruining Justin's life? I stood on the pavement, feeling the cool autumn breeze against my face. I looked at Claire. Once upon a time, when I was 15, I spent 3 weeks' worth of my allowance to buy her a silver music box for her birthday. I used to walk 2 miles in the snow just to drop off her favorite matcha tea before her morning exams. I had loved her with the raw, desperate purity of a child who thought he had found a shelter in the storm. Now looking at her sharp, pretty face, I felt nothing. She was just a stranger, standing on a sidewalk. Claire, I said softly. She straightened her shoulders, expecting me to beg, expecting me to say, Claire, please listen to me. I didn't orchestrate the kidnapping. Did you know, I said, my voice quiet and conversational, that when you lock someone in a wooden storage shed in November, the frost builds up on the inside of the door latch? Claire blinked, caught off guard. What? If you press your tongue against the iron latch to taste the moisture because they haven't given you water in 3 days, I continued, staring blankly at her eyes, your skin freezes to the metal. When they pull you out by your hair, a piece of your tongue stays behind. Claire's face drained of color. She took a step back, her eyes widening in horror. Jake, stop, that's disgusting. Justin locked me in the storage shed the morning of the high school entrance exam, I said. He told you I ran away because I was scared of failing. And you believed him. You brought him hot soup while I was picking ice off my lips. You're lying, Ashley shouted from inside the car, rolling down the window. Justin was at home all morning. He had a fever. He had a fever because he spent an hour outside in the cold locking the shed door from the outside, I said. I turned to Claire one last time. You two deserve each other. You really do. I got into the back seat of the car, pulled my legs up, and closed my eyes, leaving Claire standing frozen on the pavement, her mouth half open, holding her melting iced coffees. That evening, the Thompson mansion was quiet. Justin was sitting in the sunroom upstairs, playing a soft piano melody. The music floated down the grand marble staircase, sweet and sorrowful. I sat in the maid's room, staring at the legal severance document sitting on the small wooden desk. My father's signature was at the bottom in thick, black ink, Richard Thompson. Beside it was my mother's shaky flourish, Eleanor Thompson. A soft knock sounded at the door. I didn't answer, but the handle turned anyway. Justin walked in. He wasn't wearing his dark glasses. He wasn't holding his white cane. He walked straight across the dimly lit room without stumbling, his eyes tracking my movement with terrifying, crisp clarity. He stood over my bed, looking down at me with a smirk that I had seen 1,000 times in my nightmares. Nice scars, brother, Justin whispered, his voice smooth and entirely free of the weak, raspy trembling he used in front of my parents. I saw the medical report Dr. Vance faxed to Dad's office. Burn marks? Really? Those farmers were more creative than I thought. I didn't move from the bed. I just looked at him. You think you're smart, don't you? Justin sneered, leaning in close until his breath brushed my ear. Demanding a severance paper? Acting like a martyr? You think if you give me your eye, Dad and Mom will spend the rest of their lives weeping over how wrong they were about you? I remained silent. Justin grabbed my chin, his fingers digging into my hollow cheeks, forcing me to look at his dark, sharp eyes. Let me tell you a secret, Jake, Justin whispered, his smile widening into a grotesque, cruel slit. I was never blind. My optic nerves are fine. Dr. Vance is an old friend of my biological uncle. I paid him $50,000 from Brittany's trust fund to fake my medical charts. I didn't flinch. I know. Justin's smile faltered slightly. What? I saw you playing video games through the crack in your door yesterday. I said, my voice dead. Your reflection was in the glass window. You were playing an FPS game. Your reaction time was under 200 milliseconds. Justin stared at me, then let out a sharp, breathless laugh. You saw? And you didn't tell Dad? You didn't run upstairs screaming like you used to. Why would I? I asked softly, looking into his eyes. They wouldn't believe me. Anyway, if I told them, they'd just say I was framing you again. They'd hit me. And I'm too tired to be hit. Justin's grip on my chin loosened slightly. For the first time since he had met me, a look of genuine, creeping unease crossed his face. He had spent 4 years playing a game where he was the cat and I was the desperate, screaming mouse. But the mouse wasn't screaming anymore. The mouse was just sitting there, cold and dead, watching him play with a corpse. You're crazy, Justin muttered, shoving my head back against the pillow. You're completely insane. Thursday, I said to the ceiling. Don't be late for the operating table. Justin, I'd hate for you to miss your gift. On Wednesday morning, 24 hours before the scheduled surgery, I left the mansion early. I didn't take the car. I walked 3 miles through the crisp morning air to the Central Municipal Police Headquarters downtown. I walked up to the front desk, where a young female officer was reviewing crime reports. Can I help you, young man? She asked politely. I reached into my canvas bag and pulled out a heavy manila folder. Inside were 3 things. 1. The certified forensic physical examination report signed by Dr. Vance, detailing 42 distinct scars, healed fractures, and third-degree burn marks consistent with severe, prolonged torture. 2. A list of wire transfer records from the Thompson family's primary corporate account to Mr. and Mrs. Silas Croft, my farm parents, totaling $240,000. Over 4 years under the memo line disciplinary maintenance. 3. A small voice-activated recording device I had hidden in my pocket the night before, containing Justin's full, clear confession in my room. I was never blind. I paid Dr. Vance $50,000 from Brittany's trust fund to fake my medical charts. I set the folder on the glass counter. I'd like to report a crime, I said softly. The officer frowned, opening the folder. What kind of crime? Human trafficking, child abuse, medical fraud, and extortion, I replied. The victim is me. The officer looked at the first page, the high-resolution photos of my bare back, under Dr. Vance's surgical lights. Her breath caught in her throat. She stood up. So fast her chair screeched against the linoleum. Stay right here, she said, her face turning dead serious. Don't move. I'm getting Captain Miller. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in an interrogation room with Captain Miller, a broad-shouldered man with tired eyes and a thick gray mustache, and a female state prosecutor named Evelyn Reed. They spent an hour going through the folder. Prosecutor Reed's face grew darker and darker with every page she turned. Jake, Prosecutor Reed said, her voice shaking with suppressed fury as she listened to Justin's voice playing from the small recorder. This is an open and shut case of systemic domestic torture and medical corruption. Dr. Vance's clinic can be raided within the hour. The Thompson family can be taken into custody by noon. No, I said. Captain Miller blinked. What do you mean, no? Son, these people shipped you to a farm to be beaten for 4 years, and now they're trying to cut out your cornea for a fake medical condition. If you arrest them now, I said, looking at the silver prosecutor's badge, pinned to Ms. Reed's jacket, their lawyers will post bail in 2 hours. They'll claim the voice recording was altered using AI. They'll say the farm records were for rural boarding school tuition. They have $50 million. Captain, they will buy their way out before the sun sets. Prosecutor Reed narrowed her eyes. What are you suggesting? Let the surgery happen tomorrow, I said softly. The room went dead silent. Are you insane? Captain Miller slammed his hand on the table. You want us to let them cut your eye out? Dr. Vance won't cut anything, I replied, pulling a folded paper from my pocket, the signed severance agreement. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., Justin will be on the operating table. The entire Thompson family will be sitting in the private waiting room, drinking champagne, celebrating their victory. Dr. Vance will be prepping the surgical instruments. I looked Prosecutor Reed straight in the eye. Execute the raid at 9:15 a.m. Catch Dr. Vance with the scalpel in his hand. Catch Justin on the operating table under anesthesia for a fake transplant. And catch my parents holding the signed severance papers. Put the cameras on them in front of the press. Prosecutor Reed stared at me for a long time. She looked at the scars on my back, in the photos, then looked at the dead, icy clarity in my eyes. She realized that I didn't want justice. I wanted absolute, unmitigated, public annihilation. All right, Prosecutor Reed whispered. 9:15 a.m. Thursday morning arrived with a clear, freezing sky. The Vance Ophthalmic Institute was closed to the public. The Thompson family had rented the entire 3rd floor to ensure total privacy. My father sat in a leather armchair in the VIP waiting room, wearing a three-piece suit, sipping espresso. My mother sat beside him, wearing a white mink coat, chatting softly with Ashley and Brittany about Justin's upcoming flight to Paris. Claire was there too, sitting near the door, looking pale and quiet. She hadn't spoken a word to anyone since Tuesday. I stepped out of the changing room wearing a blue surgical gown. My hair was pulled back under a paper cap. My mother looked up, offering me a tight, awkward smile. Jake, you look fine. Don't be nervous. Dr. Vance is the best in the country. I'm not nervous, Mrs. Thompson, I said quietly. Justin was already wheeled past us on a gurney, wearing a matching gown, looking pale and tragic for the benefit of the family. Wish me luck, Mom, Justin whimpered, his voice trembling as he squeezed my mother's hand. I'm so scared. Oh, my brave boy, my mother wept, kissing his forehead. You'll be fine. Your brother is giving you his eye. You're going to see the world again. Ashley glared at me. Make sure you lie still, Jake. Don't ruin Justin's surgery with your twitching. I didn't answer. I turned and followed the orderly down the sterile hallway into operating room 3. Inside, the room was freezing cold. Bright surgical lamps illuminated the stainless steel table. Dr. Vance stood near the instrument tray, adjusting his sterile gloves, his face pale and nervous. Lie down, Jake, Dr. Vance said, avoiding my eyes. I climbed onto the narrow table, laying my head back into the circular headrest. Justin was on the adjacent table 3 feet away, already hooked up to a heart monitor and in 4 drip. Dr. Vance, Justin whispered from his table, a faint smirk playing on his lips, where the doctor couldn't see. Is the donor ready? Yes, Dr. Vance muttered. He picked up a syringe containing a mild sedative. Jake, I'm going to administer the 4 sedative now. You'll go to sleep. Don't bother with the sedative for me, doctor, I said softly, looking up at the ceiling lights. Dr. Vance paused. What? Check the clock, I said. Dr. Vance frowned, looking up at the digital clock on the wall. 9:14 a.m. 9:15 a.m. Bang. The heavy double doors of the surgical suite were blown open with a violent crash. State police. Nobody move. Drop your instruments. A dozen heavily armed officers in tactical vests swarmed into the operating room, their rifles raised, red laser sights washing over the tiled walls. Dr. Vance shrieked, dropping his syringe onto the floor, where it shattered into 100 glass shards. What is the meaning of this? This is a private medical facility. Prosecutor Reed walked through the tactical team, flanked by 4 federal agents and 2 official court videographers whose cameras were already rolling, streaming live to the state judicial portal. Dr. Arthur Vance, Prosecutor Reed announced, her voice booming off the surgical tiles. You are under arrest for federal medical fraud, execution of illegal organ harvesting protocols, and conspiracy to commit aggravated child abuse. Justin sat up on his gurney in pure panic, his face turning bright white. What? Mom. Dad. Sit down, Mr. Thompson, an officer barked, pressing a heavy hand onto Justin's shoulder, pinning him to the table. At the same time, the doors to the private waiting room outside were kicked open. My father, mother, Ashley, and Brittany were forced into the hallway in handcuffs by state troopers. What are you doing? My father roared, his face flushed red with rage as a trooper forced his arms behind his back. Do you know who I am? I am Richard Thompson. I will have your badges for this. Mr. Thompson. Prosecutor Reed stepped out into the hallway, holding a thick stack of warrants. You are under arrest for human trafficking, felony child abuse, and illegal financial solicitation of severe bodily harm. Trafficking? My mother shrieked, her mink coat slipping off her shoulder as she struggled against her cuffs. That is my son. We were just getting him medical treatment. He is not your son, Prosecutor Reed said coldly. She pulled out a fresh paper from her folder. DNA tests executed yesterday on Mr. Jake Thompson confirm a 99.9% biological match between him and Eleanor Thompson. He is your biological child. The hallway went dead silent. My mother froze. Her jaw hung open, her bloodshot eyes widening in complete, incomprehensible terror. What did you say? Jake was never adopted, Prosecutor Reed said, her voice dropping into an icy, cutting tone that was broadcast live to the news cameras standing behind her. You lied to him when he was 16. You claimed he was adopted so you could legally justify dumping your biological child on an abusive farm while you kept your adopted golden boy, Justin, in luxury. My mother looked at my father. My father's face went completely blank, the blood draining from his lips until he looked like a corpse. No, Ashley whimpered, backing against the wall in cuffs, tears streaming down her face. No, Jake is our real brother. And as for your beloved Justin, Prosecutor Reed motioned to the videographer, who pointed the camera straight into operating room 3. Inside, 2 officers were pulling Justin off the gurney. Justin was screaming, flailing his arms, looking around the room with crystal clear precision, dodging the medical carts, eyeing the exit door with sharp, perfect vision. "Look at him," Prosecutor Reed said into the camera. "Mr. Justin Thompson's optic nerves are 100% healthy. He was never blind." The entire medical file was a fabricated scam designed to extort an eye from his biological brother. Claire, who was standing by the waiting room door, covered her mouth with both hands, letting out a horrified, strangled sob as she watched Justin, the sweet, tragic boy she had defended for 4 years, glaring at the police with eyes full of pure, psychotic malice. "You ruined it," Justin screamed at me, his voice cracking into an ugly, shrill howl as the officers slammed him against the wall, clicking handcuffs around his wrists. "You ruined everything, you little parasite. I should have killed you in that storage shed 4 years ago." My mother looked at Justin, then looked at me as I walked slowly out of the operating room, wearing my oversized blue hospital gown. I stopped 3 feet away from her. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the signed, notarized severance agreement. I dropped it onto the floor at her feet. "Congratulations, Mrs. Thompson," I whispered, my voice calm, clear, and totally unburdened. "You are officially childless." The trial was the biggest scandal the state had seen in 20 years. The media dubbed it the Mansion of Shadows case. For 3 weeks, the local and national news played the evidence on loop. The horrifying photos of my scarred back. The wire transfer records showing my father paying my farm parents $240,000 to torture me. The recorded audio of Justin confessing to his fake blindness. The footage of Dr. Vance's illegal surgical suite. The public outcry was catastrophic. The Thompson family's primary stock collapsed by 90% in 3 days. Bank of America and JP Morgan pulled their credit lines. The family board of directors held an emergency meeting and officially stripped my father of all corporate titles and assets. The legal judgments came swiftly. 1. Mr. Richard Thompson was sentenced to 14 years in state prison for felony child abuse, human trafficking, and financial corruption. 2. Mrs. Eleanor Thompson was sentenced to 8 years as an active accomplice to domestic torture and child abandonment. 3. Justin Thompson was sentenced to 12 years for criminal conspiracy, falsification of medical records, attempted organ theft, and his confession to the storage shed confinement. 4. Dr. Arthur Vance was stripped of his medical license permanently and sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. 5. My farm parents, Silas and Martha Croft, were arrested by state troopers and sentenced to 18 years for aggravated assault, unlawful imprisonment, and human trafficking. Ashley and Brittany avoided prison time due to a lack of direct financial involvement, but their lives were utterly ruined. The mansion was seized by the court to satisfy legal restitution claims. Their trust funds were frozen. Their high society friends abandoned them overnight. Ashley was kicked out of her university, her rock band members changing their group name and publicly denouncing her. Brittany was fired from her internship at a fashion house, her name blacklisted across the industry. 2 months after the trial ended, I sat in a quiet, sunlit cafe downtown, wearing a clean, comfortable charcoal sweater and dark jeans. My hair was cut neatly, and my face had gained a healthy color. Beside me sat Prosecutor Evelyn Reed, sipping an iced latte. "The court finalization came through today, Jake," Ms. Reed said gently, handing me a blue folder. The Thompson estate's liquidated assets yielded a $5 million victim restitution payout. It's been transferred into a private, irrevocable trust under your name. I looked at the blue folder. I didn't open it. "I don't want $5 million, I said softly. "It's not their money anymore, Jake," Ms. Reed replied, resting her hand over mine. "It's your compensation. Use it to go to university. Use it to build a life. You earned every single penny of it through your survival." I looked out the glass window of the cafe. Across the street, standing in the cold rain outside a bus stop, were 2 women, wearing thin, faded coats, holding paper bags of cheap groceries. It was Ashley and Brittany. They looked gaunt, tired, and aged by 10 years. They were living in a small, rented basement apartment on the outskirts of the city, working 12-hour shifts at a local laundromat to pay off their remaining civil debts. Ashley caught my eye through the cafe window. She froze. Her eyes filled with tears. Not anger, not annoyance, but deep, agonizing, soul-crushing regret. She took a step toward the glass door, her hands trembling, reaching out as if she wanted to call my name. "Jake, brother." Her lips seemed to form through the glass. I looked at her. I didn't glare. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I simply looked past her, as if she were nothing more than a pane of glass, a drop of rain, or a shadow on the pavement. I turned back to my coffee, picked up my cup, and took a slow, warm sip. The rain fell outside, washing the streets clean, but inside the cafe the air was warm, quiet, and peaceful. My name was Jake. I had no family. I had no debts. And for the first time in my life, I was finally truly free.